All right. Mic check. I'm good. So I'm Max Ceron. CWB Association Welding podcast. Today we have a really cool guest. Welding podcast.
The show is about to begin.
Hello and welcome to another episode of CWB Association podcast. My name is Max Ceron with you guys. As always, we got an awesome show today for a person that's coming to us from a company where we already had another person interviewed from. So this company is shaking and moving. I've dealt with them when I was at the college for a few years. They got lots of stuff on the go. And who we have here today is Elizabeth Neufeld. So Elizabeth, how are you doing?
Good. How are you, Max?
I'm doing awesome. So for the people that are watching this and not just listening, because we also put this up on YouTube, I'm wearing a toque, okay, so that people know. I'm in Regina, Saskatchewan, and we're minus 51 with the wind chill right now. So it is cold, like in the house with the heat blasting and like a space heater, it's still freezing in here. So I got my toque on and, you know, some shameless branding, some CWB toque there. So you guys bear with me if you hear my teeth chattering into the microphone. How cold is it in Victoria right now, Elizabeth?
I'm in Vancouver. It's
Okay.
I think it's about 0 right now, maybe -1.
Oh man, where in Vancouver are you?
Right in Vancouver, BC.
Okay, like where in Vancouver, BC? Like West Van, North Van,
In Kitsilano.
Richmond, Surrey, Kitsilano. Okay.
Yeah.
My parents lived in Richmond for a long time. My sister was in Coquitlam for a long time. I got lots of homies out in Vancouver. It's an awesome city, beautiful.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah.
So where are you from there? Are you a native to Vancouver area?
Yeah. So I was born here and I lived here for about 5 or 6 years, and then I moved out to Maple Ridge for about 12, and then I moved back to here, and I've been here since.
Cool. Did you move back there for work or like what brought you back into the main hub?
It was I was finishing up high school, and it was kind of everybody had wanted to come back to Vancouver and live here, so my whole family and myself, we moved back here.
Okay, cool. So let's lay this out now for people. So first of all, let's make sure I got this right. It's Elizabeth. Do you go by Ellie, Elizabeth, Lizzie, E,
Liz.
Liz? Okay, all
Liz.
right. So let's go. I want to use a proper naming here. So Liz.
Perfect.
So Liz, you were born out there. I know there's great programs, great schools out in that area. So as a kid growing up, were you like interested in the trades? Was this kind of like a plan to where lead us into your story as young Liz coming up in BC?
So I kind of thought about trades on and off. Didn't really know what I wanted to kind of get into with trades. I thought about being a chef there for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And then I actually wanted to be a psychologist for a good
Oh,
couple of years there.
uh,
And yeah, and the the amount of schooling just to get through it, and the amount of money, and starting my career at around 30 just kind of freaked me out a little bit with all the student debt and everything, that I had started to look into trades a lot more seriously. And I didn't know what one to do, and it was about grade 10, one of my brothers was thinking about going into welding, and it was just apply. If you don't want to do it when you graduate, you don't have to do it.
mm-hmm.
And it ended up working out great because it was about a 2-year wait. So as soon as I had finished high school, I actually got a call to go in for my level C welding.
Okay, so which college did you get into for level C? Where did you go?
I went to BCIT.
BCIT.
Yeah.
That's a huge school. Like they got so many programs there.
Yeah, it's a great school.
And for the people that were listening, I'm sorry I made the sound for psychology. But it's just because it is such a long, hard road.
It
Like
is.
you can't get a job with a degree. You have to get at least a master's
Mm-hmm.
or a doctorate to get a legit job. And there's a shortage of psychologists in Canada right now, like huge, especially post COVID. We're gonna need lots of shrinks. And I'm not saying that in like a make fun type of way. I mean like in a like you take your car in for an oil change kind of way, you know, and it's a tough gig. It's a
Yeah,
tough
for
gig.
sure.
So you went into level C. It sounds like you had pretty good support. Brothers went into welding. Sounds like you already, as a young girl coming up in school, you're already, thinking about trades. So you seem to be comfortable with the idea. So what did your parents do for a living? Are they in the trades?
So my dad painted cars, so auto
Hmm.
body painting, and then my mom was a daycare nanny as well.
Was the daycare out of your home?
Um, Somewhat. She went to other places and kind of helped out, and then she
Oh
would
yeah,
take kids and for about a year or two look after them and kind of go from there. So
cool. So
yeah,
okay, so now you start level C. How'd you like it? Rolling into
loved it
school. Yeah, right off the top.
right off the bat. Absolutely loved it. I I love working with my hands and I love creating things and I like to be actually to see it. Like you can see it right in front of you that you're creating this piece and just I just got sucked into it.
Did you get attracted more by the art of welding or the science of welding, like making good joints or making a proper weld? I mean, there's lots of aspects to welding that can be beautiful to me.
Yeah.
Which part really attracted you right off the top?
I think it was just creating. So it was
Hmm.
just, laying a really, really nice bead and being actually really proud of it and then applying that to your jobs and actually creating something and being a part of it. It's really rewarding.
Okay, so the program you took, was it like did you go right straight into apprenticeship or did you take a pre-employment course or what kind of class did you take?
So after my welding level C, so it was about, I think it was 6.5 months, 7 months at that time.
Hmm.
And from there on, I just went straight to trying to find a job. Worked up my hours, came back for my B level, same thing, work, just went out and tried to find jobs and just worked on my hours and then went back and did my final level A at BCIT as well.
Okay, and for the people listening across Canada and to the US, like I think lots of our American friends that listen to the show now know that in Canada we have a three-level welding apprenticeship program. In most of Canada, it's level one, two, three, and in BC they use CBA. So
Yeah.
C being third or first year, B being second year, and A being the third and final year.
Yeah, exactly.
So did you do well? Like you got good marks? You like every time you go back to school, you kind of crush it?
Yeah, I loved it. I felt like I had a really good hand at it. And just, yeah, I really fell in love with it.
Okay, and then where did you work in between? Did you have a job that you kept going back to religiously, or did you kind of bounce around?
I kind of bounced around. I did a lot of custom fabrication jobs before I started working at Seaspan. So my background previously to where I am now was custom fabrication. So here's the drawings, cut all the material, tack it all together, make sure it's fit to whatever tolerances that is needed, and then weld it out.
Okay, and then you finished your level A, and did
Yeah.
you get go for your red seal right away?
Yeah, I pretty much went and did it. It was kind of at that time not like you didn't have to take it, but it was recommended that you have it and just be more valuable. So ended up writing it. Thankfully, passed that and
First try?
first try.
Good.
Yeah,
So now you got your red seal. You're armed with that fancy seal,
yeah.
and you're going back out to work. Did where did you go from there?
So after my A level, I went to a small shop that my buddy owned that needed some help there with some projects. So went out and worked there with him for a little bit. Same thing, custom fabrication too as well. So whatever was coming in was what was built.
And I'm like, I mean, I've worked custom fab most of my life, and I love that gig. I find that if you're a young person, if you can get in to a custom fab shop, it's probably one of the best learning experiences you can get. Do you agree?
Absolutely. When I first came out of my C level, I was like, all I wanted to do is weld, 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 weld. That's all I want to do. And then my brother, the one that actually went into welding, he's like, you should probably try and get a fabrication job because you're probably going to learn more from that. And you do. You learn a lot. You learn how to put the piece properly, what spot you need to weld where for any of distortion, and just it's a good experience.
Hmm. And not to take anything away from manufacturing, because like I mean, I worked as in a manufacturing shop for a long time. That's a whole nother skill set that's also valuable, but fab is a lot more like I guess like brain work, a lot more
Yes,
math, a lot more thinking, right?
absolutely. Yeah, agree.
So have you thought about, or have you maybe gone back for your steel fab ticket?
I was actually going to. There was a time where I was seriously thinking about it, and I can't remember. I can't remember why I did. I think I got a job, and it kind of just slipped my mind in the background again.
So just so you know, you can challenge for it. I did. That's what I
Oh
did. I
yeah.
went back and challenged for my steel fab. So I got both Red Seal endorsements now, my welding and my steel fab. And if you decide to do that, just know it's a hard test.
I can imagine. Yeah, you're challenging it.
It's like a lot of math, man. Like a
Oh wow,
lot.
that's pretty cool.
No, it was cool.
Yeah.
So how did you end up at C-SPAN?
So my brother that went into welding, he actually worked at Cspan. So
Okay.
they did a hiring part, and I applied for it and got in, and I've been at there ever since.
So I gotta ask, because I'm sure it comes up in your life, who's the better
Yes.
welder, you or your brother?
Oh, please. I mean, I'm humble.
Which doesn't answer the
um,
question.
I'm not gonna say anything. We're both good. We both have our pros and cons with it as well. So he's
Oh
good.
man,
I'm good.
you that was very political.
Yes.
You're
I get it all the time.
yeah, for sure. Like I had to ask because I'm sure it happens all the time. See, my
Oh
dad
yeah.
was a welder, and people are always like, "Well, who's a better welder, you or your dad?" And I'm always just like, "Well, obviously me because he's old, right?" Like, but how much older is your brother than you?
About 4-ish years. 4-ish
All right,
years.
so he's already on the downhill slide. So you're,
Yeah, kind
yeah.
of. Eyesight going a little bit, maybe shaky hands.
So when you got on at C-SPAN, did you get in mainly for welding or for fab? Like, because like I mean, they're kind of different geared jobs, you know?
Yeah, so it was one of the things when I actually went to C-SPAN, it was if you're a welder, you're a welder. You're stuck there welding. You can work with fitters and you can help fit them and tack and all that stuff like that, but there's not like every single
You don't,
person is a welder and a fitter.
yeah, you don't get the blueprints. They get the blueprints.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Exactly. So it's a little
So,
bit different going there with that, learning just you're just a welder. That's all that you got to do there. So,
and that's what they hired you on as just a welder.
yep, just a welder.
And like, I mean, this is shipbuilding, so I'd imagine there's a lot of large welds. Like, oh, like what's like your typical fillets? I'd imagine are probably like 3/8 or half inch and up. Like, I can't imagine you guys are doing a lot of tiny welds.
Most of them are around 5, 6, 7 millimeters. So obviously, certain pieces are going to be a lot larger depending on what it is, but majority of them are about 5 or 6 mil.
Okay, and is it all mild steel, or do you guys do like hard ox or any other like hardened steels or any special materials that get welded?
Right now, we just do our mild steel AH 36, I believe, is what most of it. Any of the alloys, stainless steel, copper, nickel, that's more of the piping side of everything.
Okay, and there's what, four C-SPAN shops?
There's Vic Ship, there's Vancouver shipyards, and there's also dry dock as well.
Okay, so three. Because I remember looking at it online, and
There
because
might be
like
another one that I'm missing.
yeah, like, and I think there was like three or four, and they're all pretty big, and they all seem to hire like lots. Like, I mean, I legit before this interview was on the website, and I was amazed at the careers page. There's like you guys are hiring a
Yes,
lot.
yes, quite a
Which
bit.
is going to lead me into the next segment, which is about what you're doing now. But we're going to take our break now for commercials. So if you guys are listening, stay tuned. We're going to take a quick break for our sponsors here on the CWB Association podcast, and we'll be back with Liz Neufeld right after this break. And we're back here. I'm Max Ceron with you guys on the CWB Association podcast. Thanks for tuning in again for another great show. Today we have Liz Neufeld from Seaspan out in Vancouver, which is her home base for her shop, right?
Yeah.
And right before the break, we were talking about how she had come up. She's got her red seal. She worked her way in as a welder to Seaspan. She's there and she's doing her welds all day and loving it. And then what happened? Like you got an opportunity there to start expanding, training, moving. What started happening?
So when I first went to Seaspan, I was hired on as a structural welder. I had my pipe tickets as well. So I was kind of bouncing back and forth between pipe and structure for a little bit there. And then they needed more pipe welders, so I was solely on pipe for a while there. I got offered a lead hand position. So I did that for about, I think it was about 6 months to a year or so. And then I moved into the pipe welding charge hand position. And I did that for probably about a couple years. And we were doing a lot of the testing, welders coming onto site, witnessing all the tests and everything.
Mhm.
And it kind of geared into that job where I was witnessing a lot of the testing and kind of geared into more of the training side of everything.
So now your current job is you're actually in charge of training and development of welders, right?
We have a group. There's
Mhm.
4 of us, and yeah, we deal with new hires, fitters and welders, and train them up and get them ready for production.
So what's that look like? I'm a welder in Saskatchewan listening to this podcast, and you know, Cspan has come to Saskatchewan to hire. Like they're looking to hire anyone right now. Well, not anyone, but like I mean, well, good
A lot of
welders, right?
people.
Yeah, a lot of
Yes.
people. and and so if I'm looking at coming out to Cspan and I walk into your training center or lab that you guys have there, what am I expecting to see? What are you going to ask me to do? What kind of welds? What's the training process that you have?
So if you're wanting to come in, we do a job test. So we get you to do a vertical and horizontal groove plate. We want to see every pass that you're doing. We want to see what you can show us. So if you can show us a sound weld, that's great. We want to see if you make a mistake, what would you do to fix it, right? If you think that a whole bunch of undercut is fantastic and you can burn through it, probably going to have some issues out on the field, right? So they do a job test and they need to prove that they have some skill that we're looking for, and then they get a call to come on to come to work for us, and then we put them in a booth for a couple days, and they have to they have to test to the CWB Marine Annex part of it. So our yard right now will accept CWB Marine Annex for the D&V side. They've accepted it, so
Hmm.
we test to that now.
And I've seen some of your guys' qualification tests, which are not normal tests for some welders that are out there. If welders looking at just your normal like 1GF CWB ticket, quite a bit of the tests that I've seen you guys do are on 1 inch plate, are thick, double bevel, vertical ups with an open root. I seen one of those come from C-SPAN. I was like, well, that's a lot of welding, like that takes hours.
Usually, I'm not too sure what that was specifically for, but the job test plates that we have are 1/2 inch, single V bevel, fill it up, back gouge it, and then they're good to go.
So a 1/2 inch single V in position,
Yeah.
back gouge with a weld.
Kind of depends. Usually we just want to see the back gouge and
Hmm.
show us what gouge to sound metal means to you, and then
Yeah.
that's usually the end of the test.
Well, and if you're a welder like me, and I flip it over, I don't really need to gouge anything to show perfect penetration and sound metal. So like, I mean, I probably wouldn't even have to touch the gouger,
You gotta gouge.
right?
We do a lot of gouging there.
Well, there's a lot of gouging in the world of fab, especially when you get into thicker plates,
Mhm.
and when things are going to get lots of ultrasound testing or UTI or anything like that, you're going to look at gouging. And you know what? For the people that are listening, and I'm sure you agree with me, Liz, proper gouging, being good at gouging or air arcing, is a skill, a valuable skill.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We see a lot of people that, oh yeah, I'm great at gouging. I know what I'm doing. And you're kind of like, ooh, probably not. Probably need to work on some skills there. But most of the people coming in haven't gouged since school.
Hmm.
So a lot of the times these guys haven't gouged for years and years and years. So
Absolutely. Like in manufacturing, you're not going to gouge.
mhm.
Most new construction, you're not going to gouge. So really, the only places you get a lot of gouging experience is if you work in some type of maintenance or repair shop, right? But
Yep.
learning to chase a crack or to find the root of a weld without over gouging, man, that's a skill.
Absolutely. not trapping any carbon in there too as well, making sure it's all nice and clean and consistent. Yeah, good skill
So
to have.
so let's say I'm coming to you to do the job test now. What kind of wire are you running? What kind of machines are you running? Like, I'm curious. Like, paint the picture of the shop and my settings.
So we do dual shield flex core, so 100% CO2, 045 wire. We run Lincoln suitcases and Lincoln FlexTex for our power sources.
Okay, so that's a nice weld. You know,
Yeah,
045 flux core that lays in there beautifully.
yeah.
I'm not a big fan of the 100% CO2. I had this discussion on Instagram the other day because I like the 75-25 for the flux core. I find that the edges wet a lot nicer. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But I mean, if you're running tons of flux core, CO2 is just way cheaper, right?
Yeah,
And it
for
runs
sure.
all right. You get a little bit of spatter, but no big deal.
Yeah, you just gotta manipulate it a little bit more to kind of help wet it out. And most people usually catch on pretty quickly with it if they're not used to it. So
So then, what are the some of the projects that you guys got going on at Cspan right now? Like, you know, we're talking about all these hires that you guys are looking for, and I mean, you're looking for hires across the board: fitters, welders, management, like safety, everything. Like, you're looking for everything. So, what's going on? What's you guys are blowing up? Everyone, COVID times are freaking out that they don't have work, and you guys have huge contracts, right?
yeah.
So, tell us a little bit about what's going on right now.
So right now we're still working on our JSS ship right now. We're still welding it. It's still out there. It's still being constructed as well, and they want to move on to double O here pretty quickly as well.
So, what does that mean?
It's another oceanographic scientific vessel as well. So
Okay.
not as big as JSS, but still a good amount of work.
So, how long does it take to build a oceanic vessel?
Um, I'm not too sure what the timelines for those ones are. It's going to be a little bit less than JSS just because JSS is very big.
Huge.
Yes,
Hmm.
very, very big. Um, so not as long as that one.
So, for the people that are listening, what's JSS?
It's the joint support system.
Okay.
So it,
Go ahead.
so, it'll basically it'll help supply boats or ships out with fuel, stuff like that that they'll need.
And how long has it taken to do that project, start to finish?
Ooh, um, probably I'm gonna say about 3 years or so, 2 to 3 years. I might be underestimating that.
So, like, I mean, that's a huge scope of work. Like, you're looking at 3 years, and like, I'm not talking like you're not talking like a couple people working on this. It's like shifts and teams and layers of work. You know, so like when you say, okay, well, we got another ship coming up, you're looking at another few years of work. Now, with all the hiring that you guys are trying to do, let's say you were fully manned. Let's say you had everyone you needed. Would these ships come off any faster, or is there just a process that it just takes X amount of time?
I think it's a process, especially when you're building the first ship. If you've never built it, you're going to run into problems. And they need to make sure that they capture that for the next one so they can build that one faster and smoother and not run into the same issues as well. So if you're building the same one constantly over and over, it's pretty smooth. Exactly, it's smooth sailing. You know what you're kind of doing,
Yeah.
what you're getting into. But if you're kind of building different ones all the times, it's a bit of a struggle with that.
Well, I heard through the grapevine that you guys might have like a few larger contracts of like multiple ships coming up.
Yeah, there was something about 19, I can't remember, a whole bunch of different types of smaller type vessel boats as well. Not too sure what's going on with that one.
Yeah. So like I mean, it doesn't sound like it's short-term work. I know that I've been talking to some of the students out here, being like, you know, move to Vancouver and go work. And you know, this is a common misconception. I'm going to tell to all the young people or the people that are thinking about chasing some work, which I think is valid. Um, it's not unlivable. Like people think that living in Vancouver or living in BC, you just can't afford it, and that's not true. Is it? Like you feel like you have a good life there?
Yeah, it depends on really where you live and kind of what you want to sacrifice. So,
Hmm.
if you live further away from, the larger cities, like where if you live far away from like North End, which is where we are working, yeah, it's going to be a little bit cheaper. But even those places still are still rising up there too as well because people are wanting to move out further away and be able to buy a house and everything.
So for a young person that's thinking about moving out there, like what are the positives that you could say to them? Like say, like you might encounter this moving out here, like you just said, like maybe the cost of living. But what are the pluses? Like I'm sure the company must pay well enough that people survive and like food and fun stuff. Like what do you love about being out there in your job?
I think I love being out here is just there's so much stuff to do. You can be in nice, non-snowy lower mainland and then drive up 45 minutes to one of the mountains and go snowboarding.
Hmm.
Um, we have really nice beaches that you can go to and beautiful lakes and there's just a lot of nice greenery, parks, outside activities that, if you're interested in doing that, we have a lot of those as well. And it's just, you know, the way of living, it's nice. I like it a lot.
Yeah, and my family lived out there for a long time, and I agree, and I tell people not to be afraid. Like if you just have to be open minded, right? Because in Saskatchewan, the prairies in general, we have a fairly low cost of living and fairly high wages, so it's pretty easy to live here. You know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah.
pretty easy. You have a job, like a normal welding job in a manufacturing shop, and like you got a house and a boat and a trailer and all this stuff. If you want to go live in BC doing the same kind of work you're doing here, you will have to give some of that up,
Yep,
right? But
absolutely.
but you gain other things. So like it's just about being like where do you want to be? And I'm always on the side of gaining experience. If you get a chance to go work on a boat for 3 years, maybe you don't live there the rest of your life, but maybe you get to work on a boat project from start to finish. Man, that'd be awesome. I'd be all over that.
Yeah, for sure. It's just what
So,
you want to be able to risk and sacrifice pretty much. And
mhm.
sometimes it works for some people, sometimes it doesn't.
And that's okay, yeah.
Yep.
And then you can just leave. Like it's not a big deal.
Yeah,
It's so
exactly. It's okay.
yeah. So now that you're in this position, it sounds like you're enjoying your job. It sounds like a good job. It sounds like a job I'd like to have. You um, what what's on the game plan now? Do you see yourself maybe eyeing up maybe a management role or a supervisor role within Cspan? Like I just I love these conversations where I hear uh, women moving into power positions within the welding industry. I think that's super positive and it's inspirational to a lot of young women. And a lot of my guests on this show are women like yourselves who have worked their way up through a lot of adversity to get into positions where they can make some moves now. Do you see yourself doing that? Like maybe moving into like ownership of your own company someday or something? Like what's the dream?
It's always a possibility. I don't like to say no, never to anything because then I wouldn't be where I am right now. So um, we'll see what happens with the future. I'm open with a lot of that stuff.
Do you eye moving up within C-SPAN or maybe even within the program you're in? Like you guys can maybe start up a full-time training lab or something, like
It's a possibility. It's for sure. It's there. I just matter of time and when and
yeah.
what works. Yeah.
Is there anything you do outside of the welding, like at C-SPAN, that's still welding? Do you have any hobbies that include welding? Like I know, like I do the association stuff. I volunteer with the CWB Association. Do you have any connections to either the colleges or associations or women programs or anything like that?
No, I've done a couple things outside of work. I went to a school and talked to grade 11s and 12s about where I am and how I started this path, and um, also went and did one of the TradeX programs in um, Abbotsford, and it
Hmm.
was just a whole bunch of different companies with a booth, and we actually had virtual welding gear
Yep.
there. So it was really cute. There's like these 6-year-olds like trying to weld. It was adorable. Um, So we did that for a couple days as well, but I don't usually do too much stuff like that outside of work with welding, but when I get the opportunity, I definitely like to jump on it.
Well, I hope you get involved with your local CWB Association chapter. There's a couple out there. There's one on the island and there's one in Vancouver, and there's great people out there. I know that we're planning on doing one of our career or sorry welding industry days out there, Can Weld or something out in Vancouver. And of course, COVID shut everything down, but we'll be up and running hopefully for next year. And every time I'm out there, I'm impressed by the amount of community workers or as people in the welding industry that support community. So you should definitely reach out to them because they'd probably love having you on board.
That's good. I will definitely check into that.
All right. So coming up towards the end of the interview here, I asked the same question to people, everyone I've had on the show. If you're looking at a group of young people, or even saying looking back at your own life and young Liz, what piece of advice or what pieces of advice would you perhaps give to somebody coming up in this industry, especially as a woman?
I would say, head down, ass up. Let your work speak for itself. I feel like that's the most powerful tool that you can absolutely do. And I would say make yourself valuable. Go and get that red seal. Go and get steel supervisor, aluminum supervisor tickets. Go get your CWB level 1 endorsement. Like go get tickets. Go make yourself valuable so that people will want you.
That's an awesome piece of advice because I got made fun of when I was younger because I would always take every opportunity to try to get tickets.
Yeah.
So like they would be testing, they'd be like, "Oh, testing's coming by next month. Who's up for renewal?" And I'd be like, "Oh, mine are all good, but can I get another one?" It's like, "Well, what do you want?" It's like, "Well, we can do stainless. Yeah, I'll get my stainless ticket. Sure." So I'd practice for a bit and get my stainless tickets. And you know what? Down the road, 2 3 years later, I now have on rotation like 7 or 8 tickets that I'm just rotating, keeping them up because now check tests are easy, right?
Yep.
You just keep the check tests and don't screw it up. It's way easier. And all of a sudden I got laid off, right? And sometimes you don't see it coming. Like companies, things happen in companies. And I got laid off, and I landed on my feet like immediately because I had these tickets, right? And even though I didn't think I might need them, they sure came in handy.
Oh yeah, it's, tickets are a very valuable thing, and, you know, get what you can, and, keep them valid too as well, because I hear a lot of time, oh, I had this and I let it expire. It's kind of like, oh no, I got to do 4 plates all over again type of thing. So,
Well, honestly, not gonna lie, I'm kind of in that boat myself right now.
oh no.
Well, I don't really weld anymore. Like I kind
Yeah.
of don't do that so much anymore. So it's like, well, should I just keep them up just for street cred?
Street cred. Have like tattoos of your expiry dates.
Well, I'm kind of running out of space, but maybe. Like I mean, and I laugh, but it's kind of true because like I got called out the other day for like, hey, do you want to throw down for some welding? Because you talk about welding all the time. Can you actually weld? And it's like, yeah, hell yeah, I can throw down. Like I can still whatever you want, TIG, MIG, stick, flux core, I don't care, I can do it. But it's like, well, all my tickets are expired, and could I actually do it? When was the last time I actually like sat down and welded that much? Like in my garage, it's not like I'll weld for an hour building something for a friend or something. But do you still keep your welding skills up?
Yeah, so I always try and make sure that I'm welding every couple days just to make sure that I've got that hand-eye coordination as well. It's important, I want to make sure that if somebody's coming on boarding and they need, say, a demo with something, that I'm actually able to do it and not it up, right? So
Man, I heard about an instructor once that refused to do demos because like he just refused to do demos for students. And I remember thinking about that years ago, being like, how can you be a teacher and refuse to do a demo? Like I would not trust you. I'd be like, what? No, no. Like, what are you talking about?
yeah, get out of here. We don't need you.
So last question, and then we'll wrap it up. What's your best weld? Any stick, MIG, TIG, I don't care what it is. What's the one that you will always knock out of the park and is just awesome?
I absolutely love TIG welding copper nickel. I think it
Oh,
is so beautiful. It is so pretty.
mhm.
there's a nice kind of science behind it too. Like you really kind of need to know what you're doing with it. You can't go too cold, can't go too hot, have to make sure everything is clean. It's a very, very, very pretty metal.
That's very niche. I've only done that a few
Yes.
times. We had to weld some copper electrodes for a milling or for a steel mill because we're using the lances. And I remember when I started that job, I had no idea, and the welds wouldn't take. Like it was like if you're doing it wrong, the welds like jump off. They're like, "No, I'm out of here, dude."
See ya.
Yeah. Well, that's good. That's a good one. So
Yeah.
you hear that, Canada? If you're in BC, Vancouver, and you want to throw down some copper nickel TIG, you got a challenger.
I'll be waiting.
All right, Elizabeth. Well, thank you very much for being on the show. This was a lot of fun. It should be out there in about 2-3 weeks after this recording, so stay tuned for it. And for all the people that have been listening to the podcast, man, I can't thank you, the fans, enough. We are the number 3 welding podcast in the world right now, which is mind blowing to me because literally I just shoot the shit with some friends on and record it, and we have a lot of fun, and getting these stories out to the community is what this is all about. So thank you to the people that are listening. Download it, share it, spread it around, share it on Instagram. I'm on Instagram, askmax75. You guys can find me there, or just go to the CWB Group Association page. You can sign up there, free memberships, and all the podcasts are listed there. So thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you very much.
All right, and you guys take care, and we'll hear you and see you again. Bye.
You've been listening to the CWB Association Welding Podcast with Max Ceron. If you enjoyed what you heard today, rate our podcast and visit us at cwbassociation.org to learn more. Feel free to contact us if you have any questions or suggestions on what you'd like to learn about in the future. Produced by the CWB Group and presented by Max Ceron. This podcast serves to educate and connect the welding community. Please subscribe, and thank you for listening.